Next speaker is actually from India. Prashant, you want to join us? Where is he? Oh, there he is, right. Excuse me. He's going to talk about some of his work in rural planning in South India.
I think you can hear me. Yeah. I come from a very special place. I call it special because it will take a while to explain otherwise. It's an experimental township in southern India, close to Pondicherry, that's the town of Pondicherry. It's about 140 kilometers south of Madras, if anybody knows where it is. It used to be a French colony and now part of India. So this was an experimental township that was planned just outside of it, city. Experimental because the idea was that it should be a place of unending experiments owned by nobody, experiment in human unity, searching for beauty and perfection. So we experiment in everything, including economy, livelihood, planning, wastewater treatment, and even the wastewater treatment has to be beautiful. That's one of the conditions. Started in 1968. Projects are recognized by the Government of India and UNESCO. It's on a plateau. Sorry, as you can see, it's on a plateau. It's next to the coast, a big water body around here. Okay, thanks. Big water body around here, and a series of lakes, which is part of the irrigation system, which was built in the 1600s. Designed by a French architect, concept was designed by French architect Roger Anger, who passed away last year. Given by the founder had given the concept design of zones, and based on that, he came up with a galaxy model sketch, which was further refined and developed with zones and other things. This is a 1968 plan, when people were designing Brasilia, Chandigarh, and those kind of cities. And of course, there were some 3D experimentations done with that. Of course, that time the concept of ground realities didn't exist, and so it was one of the things that was developed as a form and function. So here we come back to the existing situation. There are villages in between, orange color. These are the 4 zones, the center part, and then these are black colors you see dotted are the existing buildings that have been developed over the last 40 years, have come up over the last 40 years. It's supposed to be a township of 50,000, but still has only about 2,000 people from 40 countries, so that's a diversity is there. Land, I'll just go through a series of layers that we put together for the planning purposes, and we went through land owned by Orwell. White patches are not owned. Then there is a lot of green work has gone through in the last 40 years. Over 3 million trees have been planted. A lot of forest has come back. So these are the areas where the tropical dry evergreen forest, which is the native forest, that has come back, and water has been around. Water has been held. No water flows out of the township right now. Percolation area has been studied using geology and soils, high percolation areas and the medium percolation areas, and also the water flow water regime in this area. That's a ridge line, and so you have water flowing towards the sea and then flowing through the tanks, and one tank flows to the other tank. It's connected to the whole region. And when you put all of them together, along with that galaxy concept that was there around that time in 1968, this is what you get. And so this is where, actually trying to figure out how actually the existing buildings, the proposed developments, or the concept, we don't even know whether it's a concept or it needs to be built as it is or how it is going to be, and the existing ground realities and everything on this layer. And these are the other surrounding areas. That's the green belt, which is around that place. The diameter is about 2.5 kilometers, and this is another 1.25 kilometers of green belt. So this is going on. It's an ongoing project, and we are working with a world-known planner and architect, Mr. Doshi, who started his career in 1950s with Le Corbusier in Paris and worked on the townships of Chandigarh. And so once we get into these areas here, which is what happens in these green areas, the water bodies, the buffers around the water bodies that need to be protected, and the percolation areas, and also the building forms that the architect had visualized in 1968, how exactly you go around detailing out these areas and how it connects with the existing road networks and the existing buildings and the green areas and the lands that we don't own, what happens on that. So that is something that is an ongoing process, and we've been working on detailing out this. But what I've seen in India is that when you get to do this analysis of the existing situation, and when it gets to an architect or planner, then it moves on to drawing boards and sketches, and then eventually it moves into AutoCAD and goes into a totally different thing. And what we are trying to experiment here is how to bring this back into GIS this whole detailing of these areas, these in-between areas, and bring it back into GIS and do different scenarios where you can actually use this and bring it back into, so, I mean, Mr. Doshi is about almost 82 years old, and he started in an era where there was no computers and nothing. So he just started using a cell phone, actually, recently. So you can imagine that we are, but again, his experience, his thinking, and all these things that is behind there in his mind, it's quite a challenge to bring it out into the GIS thing. And so this is one of the plans. You may have seen this. This map was there outside yesterday. But I didn't have time to actually put the description on that. But this is the work that is ongoing, and this is what actually, when I saw this GeoDesign conference, and I said, yes, this is the perfect place to come and look for it. Thank you.